For more than 1,000 years, one city stood between Europe and Asia. One city controlled the trade routes of empires. One city survived wave after wave of invaders who believed they would be the ones to finally bring it down. Persians, Arabs, Bulgars, Rus raiders, Crusaders. All had come, all had failed. Its walls were legendary, its position was unmatched, its reputation seemed almost supernatural. The city was Constantinople. And in the spring of 1453, a 21-year-old sultan arrived with a single goal: destroy the last remnant of the Roman Empire, take the city, or die trying. What followed was one of the most dramatic sieges in military history, a clash of ambition and desperation, of ancient defenses against revolutionary technology, of brilliant decisions and catastrophic mistakes. This is the story of how Constantinople fell and how the world changed forever. By the middle of the 15th century, the Byzantine Empire was barely an empire at all. For centuries, it had been one of the most powerful states on Earth, the eastern continuation of Rome. Its armies once marched across the Balkans, Anatolia, the Middle East, and North Africa. But those days were gone. Now the empire consisted of little more than Constantinople and a handful of scattered territories. The city still looked magnificent. Its churches dominated the skyline. Its harbours bustled with trade. Its walls still towered above the landscape. But behind the image was a dangerous reality. The population had collapsed. Entire neighbourhoods sat empty. The treasury was nearly bankrupt. The military was a shadow of its former self. The empire had become a giant fortress with almost nothing behind the walls. And surrounding that fortress was a rising superpower: the Ottoman Empire. For more than a century, the Ottomans had expanded relentlessly. Every generation pushed farther. Every victory made them stronger. And now they controlled most of the territory surrounding Constantinople. The city was no longer the center of a great empire. It was an island, an isolated stronghold surrounded by enemies. The question was no longer whether the Ottomans would come. The question was when. And when the answer finally arrived, it came in the form of a young ruler unlike any the Byzantines had faced before. A man obsessed with a single objective, a man who had spent years studying the city, a man who believed destiny itself had chosen him. His name was Mehmed. History would remember him as Mehmed the Conqueror. But first he had to accomplish the impossible. Most rulers inherit goals. Mehmed inherited an obsession. From childhood he had been taught about Constantinople. Its wealth, its history, its strategic importance, its symbolism. To the Ottomans, the city represented more than territory. It represented legitimacy. As long as Constantinople remained independent, a rival civilization still existed at the heart of Ottoman lands. A reminder that Ottoman domination was incomplete. For Mehmed, taking the city would cement his place in history. Failing would destroy his reputation. He understood something many leaders miss. Wars are often won years before the first battle begins. Preparation matters, logistics matter, positioning matters. And so he began preparing, methodically, patiently, relentlessly. His first major move wasn't an attack, it was isolation. He ordered the construction of a massive fortress on the European side of the Bosporus. The fortress was called Rumeli Hizari. Its location was carefully chosen. Any ship attempting to reach Constantinople through the strait would pass directly beneath Ottoman guns. The message was clear. The city was being strangled. Not tomorrow. Today. The Byzantines watched it happen, and there was almost nothing they could do. This was one of the first turning points of the campaign, because Mehmed wasn't merely preparing for a siege, he was ensuring Constantinople would face that siege alone. No reinforcements, no supplies, no rescue. Every strategic decision pointed toward the same objective: cut the city off, then crush it. But Mehmed still faced one enormous problem: the walls, the legendary walls, and no army in history had ever successfully broken them, at least not yet. For nearly 1,000 years, the Theodosian Walls had protected Constantinople. They were among the greatest defensive structures ever built. Layered defenses, massive towers, deep ditches, multiple walls behind multiple walls. Invaders had stared at them in frustration for centuries. Traditional siege methods often failed. The walls simply absorbed punishment. So Mehmed searched for a solution, and he found it in gunpowder, specifically in artillery. A Hungarian engineer named Orban approached the Byzantines first. He offered something revolutionary: massive siege cannons, weapons capable of smashing fortifications that had once been considered invincible. The Byzantines wanted them, but they couldn't afford them. That decision would haunt them. Because Orban then approached Mehmed, the Sultan immediately recognized the opportunity. He provided funding, resources, materials, support. Soon, gigantic cannons were being cast. Some weighed tons. Transporting them required enormous teams of men and animals. Roads had to be reinforced, bridges modified, logistics carefully coordinated. It was a huge undertaking. But Mehmed understood something crucial. If the walls could be breached, the entire strategic equation changed. Suddenly, Constantinople was vulnerable. Suddenly, history could be rewritten. Imagine standing on the walls and seeing these weapons arrive. The largest artillery pieces ever seen, weapons designed specifically for your destruction. The defenders understood what was coming, and they knew there was no easy answer. The siege hadn't begun. But psychologically, the battle was already underway, and the next move would make the danger impossible to ignore. Inside Constantinople, Emperor Constantine XI faced an impossible situation. His name carried enormous weight. He was the final Roman emperor, the last ruler of an empire stretching back nearly 1,500 years. But titles don't create soldiers, and soldiers were exactly what he lacked. The defenders numbered only a few thousand. Against them stood an Ottoman force perhaps 10 times larger. Some estimates place Ottoman strength above 80,000 men, others higher. Either way, the imbalance was staggering. Constantine responded with the only strategy available: concentrate force, hold the walls, exploit every advantage. Most importantly, he welcomed foreign assistance. Among the arrivals was Giovanni Giustiniani, an experienced Genoese commander. His arrival may have saved the city, temporarily. Giustiniani brought professional troops, expertise, confidence. The emperor placed him in charge of key defensive sectors. It was a smart decision, one of the best of the entire campaign, because Constantine understood a truth many leaders ignore. Competence matters more than pride, but even good leadership couldn't solve every problem. The city remained dangerously undermanned. Every section of wall required defenders. Every breach required repairs. Every casualty mattered. The defenders weren't preparing for victory, they were preparing for survival. And then in April 1453, the storm finally arrived. The Ottoman army appeared before Constantinople like a tidal wave. Tents stretched across the landscape. Artillery batteries were positioned, siege lines formed, the city was surrounded, the siege had begun. Then the cannons opened fire. The sound echoed for miles, stone shattered. Dust filled the air. The defenders watched sections of wall crumble beneath bombardment, unlike anything they had experienced before. But something surprising happened. The walls did not immediately collapse. The Byzantines adapted. Every night, repair crews rushed to damaged areas. Broken sections were rebuilt. Earthworks reinforced weakened points. What artillery destroyed during the day, defenders repaired during the night. The struggle became a race. Could Ottoman firepower destroy the defenses faster than defenders could repair them? For weeks, neither side gained a decisive advantage. This was frustrating for Mehmed. His plan depended on momentum, rapid success, visible progress. Instead, the city refused to die, and every day the siege dragged on increased risk. Disease, supply issues, falling morale, political pressure. A failed siege could threaten his rule. The young sultan needed a breakthrough. He needed something dramatic, and he found it in the harbour. Constantinople possessed a secret weapon: the Golden Horn. A natural harbour protecting the city's northern side. A massive iron chain stretched across its entrance. Enemy fleets could not enter. As long as the chain held, Ottoman naval power was largely neutralized. This was a major strategic advantage. The defenders could focus resources elsewhere. Mehmed recognized the problem immediately. The harbour had to be opened, but direct attacks failed. The chain remained intact. Most commanders might have accepted the setback, not Mehmed. Instead, he conceived one of the most famous maneuvers in military history. He would bypass the chain entirely, not by sea, by land. The plan sounded absurd. Ottoman engineers prepared wooden tracks. greased pathways, teams of workers. Then, under cover of darkness, Ottoman ships were hauled overland across the hills. When morning arrived, the defenders looked out in disbelief. Ottoman vessels had appeared inside the Golden Horn, behind the chain, inside the protected harbour. It was a strategic masterpiece, a moment of pure operational creativity, and suddenly, the entire defensive situation changed. New threats emerged, new positions had to be defended, new pressure appeared where none had existed before. The siege had entered a new phase, but the worst was still coming. As weeks passed, exhaustion became the enemy. The defenders fought constantly, repairing walls, repelling attacks, managing shortages, responding to artillery damage. Every day cost resources they couldn't replace. Every casualty hurt. The Ottomans suffered losses too, but they could absorb them. The Byzantines could not. This difference matters enormously in siege warfare. Sometimes victory isn't about being stronger, it's about being able to endure longer. The Ottomans possessed strategic depth, the defenders did not. Meanwhile, artillery continued pounding the walls, breaches appeared repeatedly, assaults tested weak points, pressure never stopped. Then another problem emerged: morale. The population understood what defeat would mean, fear spread. Rumours circulated, hope diminished. Yet Constantine refused to surrender. Again and again he rejected demands for submission. The city would fight, no matter the odds, no matter the consequences. It was a courageous decision, but also a costly one. Could surrender have saved lives? Possibly. Could it have preserved the city? Maybe. Would history remember Constantine the same way? Almost certainly not. His choice guaranteed either glory or destruction, nothing in between. And by late May, destruction was drawing closer. Mehmed knew the siege could not continue indefinitely. He needed a decisive result, so he prepared for an all-out assault. Every available resource would be committed, every advantage exploited, every weakness targeted. The plan relied on waves. The first attacks would exhaust defenders, the second would stretch them further, then elite forces would strike at the critical moment. It was brutal, simple, and potentially effective. Meanwhile, inside the city, defenders prepared for what they knew was coming. Priests held services, citizens prayed, soldiers sharpened weapons. The atmosphere was tense, heavy, almost surreal. Everyone sensed history approaching. Everyone knew the next battle could decide everything. The final Roman emperor walked among his men, encouraging them, thanking them, preparing them. No reinforcements were coming. No miracle fleet appeared on the horizon. They were alone. And before dawn on May 29th, 1453, the final attack began. The battlefield exploded into chaos. Ottoman forces surged forward. Arrows darkened the sky, artillery thundered, war cries echoed across the walls. The first wave attacked, then another. Then another. Defenders fought desperately. At several points they succeeded. Assaults were repelled, attackers driven back. For a moment it seemed the city might survive yet again. Then came a turning point. One man, one wound, one decision. Giovanni Giustiniani was seriously injured. Accounts differ on exactly what happened, but the effect was undeniable. The city's most important military commander left his position. When news spread, morale collapsed. Panic began to ripple through defenders. This moment reveals how much leadership matters. The physical damage mattered, the psychological damage mattered more. Strong leaders often serve as anchors. When the anchor disappears, entire systems unravel. The Ottomans sensed weakness. Pressure intensified, more troops poured forward. Then another disaster struck. A small gate, possibly left unsecured or exploited during the chaos, became a pathway for Ottoman forces. Once attackers gained a foothold inside, the situation deteriorated rapidly. Defensive coordination collapsed. Positions became isolated. Communication broke down. The battle transformed from organized defense into desperate survival. And at the center of it all stood Constantine XI. As Ottoman troops entered the city, Constantine faced a choice: escape or stay. Many rulers throughout history chose survival. He did not. Accounts suggest he removed imperial insignia and entered the fighting, not as an emperor, as a soldier. His exact final moments remain uncertain, but what matters is what they represented. The Roman Empire had lasted nearly 15 centuries. Generations had fought to preserve it. Entire civilizations had risen and fallen around it. Now its final ruler stood in a collapsing city surrounded by enemies. And somewhere amid the chaos, he disappeared. His body was never conclusively identified. The emperor was gone. The empire was gone. The city had fallen. After more than 1,000 years, Constantinople was no longer Roman. It belonged to Mehmed, but conquering the city was only the beginning. The real challenge came next. What would he do with it? Many conquerors destroy. Great conquerors build. Mehmed understood immediately that Constantinople was too valuable to ruin. The city wasn't merely a trophy, it was a strategic asset, a capital, a crossroads, a symbol. So instead of reducing it to rubble, he transformed it. He moved quickly to restore order, encouraged repopulation, restarted trade, rebuilt infrastructure, integrated the city into the Ottoman system. This may have been his most important decision. Military victories can be temporary, political victories endure. Had Mehmed treated Constantinople purely as a conquered city, its importance might have faded. Instead, he turned it into the heart of an empire, a center of power for centuries. The city became Istanbul, and from there, Ottoman influence expanded across 3 continents. The siege was over. The consequences were just beginning. History often feels inevitable after the fact, but it rarely is. Consider the possibilities. What if the Byzantines had acquired advanced artillery first? What if European powers had sent substantial reinforcements? What if Justiniani had remained in command during the final assault? What if Ottoman naval operations had failed? What if Mehmed abandoned the siege after weeks of resistance? Each possibility creates a different world. A surviving Byzantine state, a delayed Ottoman expansion, a different balance of power across Europe and the Middle East. The outcome we know today depended on countless decisions, some brilliant, some disastrous, some made by emperors, others made by ordinary soldiers. That is what makes the fall of Constantinople so fascinating. It wasn't simply the destruction of a city, it was a contest of leadership, a battle of strategy, a clash between old systems and new technologies, and above all, it was a reminder that no fortress is truly invincible. Eventually, every wall meets a weapon capable of breaking it. Every empire meets a challenger. Every age comes to an end. On May 29, 1453, one age ended. Another began, and the shockwaves would reshape the world for centuries to come. If you enjoyed this deep dive into history, subscribe for more videos on empires, wars, mysteries, and forgotten civilizations.